Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. We're going to be going over the interest module. We're calling this webinar The Interesting Thing About Interests. So just kind of trying to get more fun with our webinar naming. Thank you for coming back to our webinars. We had a bit of a break in November as we were doing our event drills kind of boot camp spinoff. We'll be doing more of those next year in 2024. We should have two more either of our boot camps or our drills, but we had a great event drills in November. And so now we're back to our regular scheduled webinar programming. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our topic today. Again, we're going over the interest module. It is a module for, as those of you who've been with ClubExpress for a long time will know, it's a module to categorize members, and that is something that we do a lot of. So we've got a lot of different ways to categorize members. There's other modules, things like committees and subgroups and email categories. So we love to kind of like give you a myriad of ways to categorize groups of people in your websites. We're going to be going over interests, which is just an additional way that members can categorize themselves instead of being categorized by an admin. So before we get into it, we'll be talking about the module configuration. And then we're going to talk about how members can select their own interests. So they can do that when they're signing up or when they're renewing their membership, or they can do it from their own member profile. And then we'll also go over what modules that the interest module connects to. So we'll be going over how to set up forums for interests. We'll be going over how to get in contact with your interest members using the emailing module. We'll also be going over how to create events specifically for members of specific interests. And then we'll go over how to kind of like look at a directory view of both interests, and we'll also look at and see how the interests show up in the membership directory. So it's kind of goes both ways. You can either look at a directory of members in an interest, or you can go to the standard member directory and take a look at the interest that a particular member belongs to. So we'll take a look at both of those options. And then the last thing we'll cover is how to go and search for individual members within an interest. All right, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop over to our demonstration portion. Let's get into it. So I'm going to change my screen here in just a minute, but the first thing we're going to take a look at is the initial configuration of the interest module. So we turn that module on using the control panel options button, and then we'll look at the different configuration options when it comes to interests. This is a fairly simple configuration process. There's only really 2 or 3 settings that you can change in the interest module. It's fairly the same depending on no matter what organization you're with. So there's not a lot of configuration or customization that goes into interest. So let's go ahead and hop into that module right now. I'm going to change my screen share. All right, so you should all be seeing the Northwest Balloon Club. This is one of our demo websites. I'm logged in as an administrator, everyone's favorite administrator, Martin Smith. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my control panel. And if we don't have the interest module already enabled, the way you would enable in a new module that you don't see here, you would go over to Configure in the upper right-hand section, and you'd want to make sure that you're in the People tab of the control panel when you click Configure. And when you open up Configure, you'll see this option. And along the left-hand side here, you will see all of the different modules and all the different tools that are going to be available to administrators in your website. So all of these different modules are going to be available to you. There will be certain modules that you may not see, and there will be certain modules that might be turned off. So if you have a module that you don't see in your website modules section, but you know it's a module that is available to you, it might show up at the bottom of the list down here. So anytime we have a module, let's use volunteering as an example. If there's any module that is ever disabled, you'll see it at the bottom of the list below a line that says disabled modules for this tab. So right now we have turned off the volunteering module. And if we were to save and close this, we would see that volunteering disappears from the list. If we wanted to re-enable it, we could go over here to volunteering and turn it back on. The same is true for interest. We get those same controls right here under interest. So if you don't see the interest module in the people section of your control panel, you might want to come into the configure option and turn that module on. Once the module is turned on, we can go ahead and do one of 2 things from here. We can click on interests, or we can switch to view mode to see what the interest module looks like for members. Right now, we're going to talk about the configuration, so we'll just go ahead and click on interests before we switch to view mode. When I click on interests from the control panel, it's going to take us to our interest category administration. This is the page where we can go in and we can start making changes to what interests are available to our members. And we can also go in and change our interest options. So the first thing we're going to want to do when we are setting up the interest module for the very first time is we're going to want to go into interest options and make a few decisions. The interest options page is pretty small. There's not a whole lot of settings here to fuss about with, but all you have to do is decide a few things. The first question is going to say allow non-members to view interest members. So if you make the interest module visible, so if you put it on your menu or let people link to it, there's going to be two different ways you can interact with it. You can have it so that only members can see what interests other members are in, or you can allow that information to be public. So if you allow non-members, that means anytime a non-member visits your site and clicks on the interest module, it's going to show even non-members what members are interested in that group. So if you want to keep that information kind of private to a members only setting, you would want to leave this unchecked. If you were to check this, then even non-members would be able to see what members have selected certain interests. The next one is just a visual option. So use accordion for categories. I like to turn this on. It makes the categories page, it categorizes all of our interests and gives them a collapsible view. So if you have a lot of interests, dozens and dozens of interests, choosing this option will make them collapse by category. It makes it a lot more visually appealing to kind of browse around the interests on your website. If you uncheck this, then it's going to show you the entire list of all available interests without kind of like shrinking that information down by category. So I'll show you that difference here in just a few minutes when we take a look at the member side. The last setting here is going to be notify on membership change. And we'll talk about how to set up who gets notified here in just a second. But what this does is whenever you are having a member join or remove themselves from an interest, it is going to notify the coordinator of that interest. So every single interest can have a member or an admin be in charge of that interest. And whenever a member in that interest either joins the interest, leaves the interest, or if their membership expires or they are dropped, it would notify the person in charge of that interest that that has happened. If we say no, then it will not let those people know. This is a global setting for the entire interest module. So there's not a way to control it saying, I want this coordinator to get notified, but this one not to. It's either a yes or no for the entire module. And we can choose which actions we want to check here. So we can say, yes, I want to let someone know whenever someone leaves an interest, but they don't need to get notified if someone were to drop or join the interest, or any combination therein. For now, we'll go ahead and leave all of those turned on. So that's all of our options that we can set for the interest module. Once we've set that up, the next thing we have to do is start adding categories and interests. So the first thing we need to set is categories, and we can see a list of already made categories here on our demo website. If we wanted to set up a new category, we could come over here to our Add Category button. And this will let us just simply create a new category. So we can say, I want this category to be called, our luncheons group. And this is a group of people that are interested in, meeting up every month, for a little bit of a luncheon. We can add a description for this category, and this description would show up in our module when members are looking at the interest module. Again, this is just for the category of interest. This is not a particular interest that people would be joining. This is a group of interests. And then we could say we can limit the number of interests that a member can be. So we can have, say 5 interests in this category, but we could limit that to 2 interests per category per member. So, if we have a luncheon group and we have a luncheon every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as well as Saturday and Sunday, maybe you're only allowed to attend 2 of those. And so we want to limit that to 2. That would put a cap on the number of interests that people are able to join. Most organizations don't limit people to the number of interests they're allowed to join. We set no limit there. And that is the most common configuration, but there are groups where, you're only allowed to be in a certain number of interests within a certain category. You can also control the visibility of this category. So you can say this category is visible to everyone, meaning it's going to show up for both members and non-members. We can set it to members only, meaning it's only going to be showing up for members. And there's also the option to set it to be an admin only visibility or an admins and member profile, meaning it's not going to show up on the module page, but it will show up in a member's profile for them to select interest from there. we will take a look at the member profile where we can see that, and we'll also take a look at the interest module page here in just a few minutes. So once we save this category, again, this is a category of interest. That's not the interest itself. We'll see that we have a new category called the luncheon group. And we have our interests here. And then from here, we can go in and add interests within this category. So we have a few kind of icons that appear to the right-hand side of that category. We have a pencil, and we can use the pencil to make changes to that. So if we wanted to add a limit down the road or remove a limit or change our description or our category name. So we'll say, you know, this is not just a single luncheon group. This is all of our different luncheon groups, plural. So now it's called the luncheon groups. The second icon here is the interests, and this is where we can add the individual interests within this group, this category of interests. And the last icon here is the trash can icon. If you were to click on the trash can icon, it would delete the category of interests. Keep in mind, if you delete a category, all of the interests within it will be deleted as well, and anyone in those interests would no longer be listed as having that interest. So if we were to, you know, delete all of our balloon maintenance interests, these 4 interests that are within it would also get deleted, and all of the members in those interests would no longer be listed as being interested in those topics. But right now, let's go ahead and click on the middle icon here, the interest icon. So now I can go ahead and add my different luncheon groups. And this is just a simple page where we can go in and add different interests. And it's very similar to the category creation, except for now we can say Monday lunch. We can add a description again, just like with the category, we can add a description, and that kind of lets people know what type of group they're joining. We can choose to create a channel. Now, this is for people who use the mobile app. So if you use the mobile app, there is a thing called mobile channels where people can kind of get categorized into channels and select what channel they want to use. So there could be messaging in the mobile app. So you could say, I want to message all of the people that are going to Monday luncheons. And that would create a channel that the mobile app users could kind of communicate in. Now, that is only going to be for people that have the mobile app. You may not see this option at all if your organization does not have the ClubExpress mobile app configured. We can also create a custom page for this group. So if we had a custom page created, when we click this dropdown, it is going to give us a list of all of the custom pages that are currently on our website. And we could select a page there, and it would put a link to that custom page connected to this interest when we are looking at this interest later on the module page. It is just going to be a splash page that people can click on to go see more information. A lot of times people, instead of putting a description in there, they will connect it to a custom page where they have, instead of just plain text, they would put in a custom page where they can have a much more kind of rich description of the interest group. So maybe there's, you know, links to the restaurant that you have your luncheons at, or, you know, PDFs of the menu that you can't fit into just a plain text description. Instead, you could create a custom web page and link to it in that way. This is also where we would set up a coordinator of our interests. So earlier when we were looking at the interest options, this is that coordinator that gets notified. If we leave this not selected, whenever a member joins or removes themselves from an interest or becomes expired, no one would be notified if there's not a coordinator selected. If we select a coordinator, this is just going to give us our little member select tool where we can search by last name, or we can just hit search and search for anyone. We can choose Greg Cho here. So now anytime someone is added or removed to from this interest group, Greg would get notified because he is set up as the coordinator. And we also get our share image. This is something that gets used all over ClubExpress. This is the image that gets shared whenever you share a link to this particular interest on social media. So if you were to post a link to the interest page on social media, linking to this specific interest, that is the image that would get used instead of something, say, like your club logo. Most times I leave the share image blank. So now we've got an interest within this group, and we could repeat that for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to create multiple interests within this category, and members could be added either from here, or members could add themselves. Once we've got our interest added, there's a few things we can do from here. Just as before, we can edit to come back and make changes to these settings for this interest. So if we have a coordinator change, or we need to change the name, or need to change the description, or need to change the custom page that it links to, we can always come back here and click on this pencil and make changes to that. We also have this icon here now. We've got our members, and this is where we can click and we can take a look at all of the members that are currently in the interest. On the left-hand side here, we'll see all of our active members that can be added to this interest group. And we've also got the selected members. Right now, this group has no interests, but this interest has no members. I can come over here and I can select a number of people, and I can add people multiple at a time to this interest. So if I have a list of people that all want to be added to a particular interest at the same time, I can add them in a bulk way by selecting them from this list. You can select multiple either by clicking and holding Shift or Control to select multiple at a time. So I can hold Control and click multiple options if I want to, add groups of people, or I can double click on a particular person to add them one at a time. And I can also use these arrows to add people. If I use the double arrows, it adds everyone. If I use the double arrows back, it removes everyone. You've got your little arrow controls that you can add individual people to this interest from here. Now, keep in mind, this is an admin option for adding people to an interest. Members also have the option to add themselves or remove themselves from a particular interest. So once I save that, we'll see I just saved 3 people to this interest. And now that this interest group has members on it, we have one more icon available to us, and that is the email option. When I click this email option, it's going to pop up a little small email page. This is not the normal ClubExpress emailing module. It does use the ClubExpress email server, but it is a more simplified email tool where we can just say, hey, this email is coming from this email address with a simple subject and a simple text message. We do have the option to mark as urgent. I always recommend against using the urgent option. It's a really good way to get caught in spam filters if you send tons and tons of urgent emails. But this is a really quick and dirty way to say, hey, we're having our Monday luncheon was canceled for, December, 11th. No Monday lunching next week. We can kind of get in contact with people this way very quickly. We'll be going over another way to email members of an interest group in a more kind of like full-featured emailing tool way. But this is a quick way just to send a text message email to the members of a particular interest group. Once we have our interest groups set up, so we've got the module configured, we've got our interest groups created, and we've got all of our categories here. We can change the display sequence that different categories show up in. So we can say, hey, I want my lunch group to show up first. I can click on display sequence here, and I can say I want my lunch groups at the top. And I've also got my reports and exports options. And these are going to be very familiar types of reports and exports to those of you who have been with ClubExpress for a while. But if you click on the reports option here, it just gives you a few options to print out lists of all of the different interests that we have, all the members sorted by interest, all of the interest members sorted by their names. So it's going to give you all their names and then what interest they're in. You can get all the information of who is in what interest sorted by different categories, sorted by different bits of information. And then the export option here is just a simple option to export all of your particular members in a CSV export. So if we were to export this, we'll see a download show up here in my folder. We can click on this to look at an Excel file. It's going to give us every bit of information, every interest, every single category, and every member in those interests. And we can then use the Excel tools to sort it by whatever kind of field that we want to. So it's going to give us a blank kind of Excel spreadsheet, completely unformatted. So that's the admin side of our interest module. Let's talk about how members interact with the interest module now. So the most common way for members to add themselves to an interest is when they're either signing up or renewing their membership. So if we go back to our control panel, we're still going to be in the People tab of the control panel. There's an option in the control panel called New Member Sign Up. It's going to show up under your admin functions. When you click on New Member Sign Up, you're going to be presented with this page. So there's a lot of different options on this page. The first option is going to be Enable First Login. This is going to be an extra option that we get to select from, meaning this is a member that was either added by an admin or a member that was added during the bulk upload process. So those of you who are new to ClubExpress, if you haven't activated your members yet, once you activate your members, this first login option is a great way to kind of present your members with an option to fill in information the first time they log in. And you'll notice over on the right-hand side here, I've got this column for first login that gets disabled and enabled depending on whether I check this option up here. So I'm going to go ahead and check that option just for now because I like to have that on. But then what we see here is all the different steps that someone might go through whenever they are either joining as a new member, renewing their membership, or the first time they log in as a member. We get all the options here, and you'll see step 6 on this list is member interest. So this means whenever a member is joining as a new member, so we'll see the option 6 here, we can check this box, meaning we'll present them with all of the different options that they could be interested in whenever a new member is joining. We can also present them with all of the interests they could be a part of whenever they renew their membership. So that means every year, every quarter, every 2 years, whenever your members are renewing their membership, they would get presented with all the interest options. So they would get kind of a refresher to say, hey, oh yeah, I'm not really interested in, the bicycling group anymore, but now I'm really interested in knitting. So if you're in kind of like a social group where you have a lot of different interests, this is a way for members, I always recommend at least keeping it in the renewal settings. That way they get a refresher every time they renew their membership of, my interests have changed over the last year, so I want to update that information as I renew my membership. And then lastly, the first time a new member logs in, we also want to show them that interest option. So I usually check all of these. The one thing you might want to uncheck is the admin option. That would be the option for an admin to answer that question for the member. Normally, I leave that unchecked because I, the admin, want to both save time, so now I don't have to see this extra page in the step, and I also may or may not know the actual interest that someone might have, so I can uncheck that, and now whenever an admin signs up for a member, or whenever an admin renews a member, they will not be presented with that screen. Only the member themselves will be able to designate their own interests. And I can save that option, and we can take a look at what that looks like. So now that I've set it up so that interests are presented during the new member sign up and the member renewal, we can go over to our people manager and we can either sign up a member or we can renew a member. So I'm going to take a look at Jenny Cho here. So now that I've saved that option, we can go, or Jenny Cho's a family member. Let's go grab a primary member. Let's look at Larry Cho. And we can click this little black renew icon. So we'll see there's an option to renew a member. Now it is black, meaning it is not time to renew Larry Cho, but because I'm an administrator, I can go ahead and renew Larry Cho early. So let's take a look at what that renewal process looks like. We will still select a family membership. I'm really interested in seeing where that interest screen comes up. So let's, I turned something off that I meant to leave on. If we go to our control panel, I turned off the option for admins. I want to see that as an admin for example purposes. So now if I renew Larry Cho, now we see the options for interests, my bad. So this is what the interest screen will look like whenever a member is renewing their membership or when a member is joining. We'll see all the different categories here. And this is that accordion option we were selecting in the choices before. So here's all the different categories, and then a member can select to look at the different options in a particular category. Because Larry is renewing and Larry is already a member, there will be some that are pre-checked here. So Larry is interested in, envelope topics, but we can say, hey, in the last year, I got really interested into baskets and burners. I've been learning a lot about balloon maintenance. So these are all the different topics that come with balloon maintenance. Again, we're on our Northwest Balloon Club. So I want to say, now I'm interested in baskets and burners. And so this is a way when he's renewing, Larry can go through all these different options and say, I'm interested in these different tools. So we can say, I'm interested in balloon photography. I'm interested in balloon history, all these different interests that show up. And Larry can say, I'm interested in any number of them. So now that Larry has updated those interests, he can finish, pay for his membership. I'm just going to record this as paid. And so now Larry has selected a few additional interests. So that is one way that members can update their interests whenever they're joining or renewing. Another way members can update their interests is by going to their own profile. So if I wanted to go to a member's profile, I'm currently logged in as Martin Smith. If I go up here to the top right corner, any member can go and click on their name, and they'll see this little drop down, and everyone will have the option to visit their own profile. When a member goes to their profile page, there is going to be an option under website functions over here in the right-hand corner that says your website functions, and there's an option for interests. And once again, we'll see this same screen where we can see all of our different categories. We can drop these categories down to select different interests that we might have. So we can say, as Martin Smith, the admin that I'm currently logged in as, I'm going to add a few extra interests or even remove interests. So we'll say, hey, I've become interested in, hot air balloon baskets, but I'm not really into the photography anymore, so I can remove that interest. A member can add or remove themselves from interest at any time. There's not a limit to it. If you're looking for things where you can kind of like limit the terms and number of things that someone can be limited to, you might want to check out our committees module. And we have some training videos connected to that. Interest is more just a way for a member to voluntarily say, I'm interested in these different topics, and share that information with other members. So now that I've selected, what interests, and I can update these at any time. Now that I've selected what interests Martin is interested in, I can save that. And now we've adjusted what interests, and I can come back here at any time, and any member can access this section from their own member profile. So what do we do with that information? So now we've learned about how to create these interests and how to add these members to an interest. What do we do once we know our members are connected to an interest? So there's a few things we can kind of take advantage of this system with. We can use this to share it with other members. So if we go to our interest module, looking at it as a member, so I'm going to switch to view mode here and take a look at this module and see it the way a member would. Here's what the module looks like as a member. When I land on this page, I'll see all the different categories. Again, we have these drop downs because I've set it up to be in the accordion mode. If it's not set up in accordion mode, it's just going to list every single interest. But because we have, dozens of interests, it would be a very tall page. The accordion page saves a lot of space by giving us these drop down options. We can see here, if we go to our balloon maintenance category, we see there's our baskets option. We can see who the coordinator is. We'll see, hey, Jenny Cho is our coordinator. And then we can also click on this to take a look at who is in this interest. We can say, oh, great. I can see all the people that share this interest with me, and I can get in contact with them. Now it's going to use the same information that is stored in our membership directory. So right now we're seeing all of their information because I'm currently logged in as an administrator. But if any of these members said, hey, I don't want to share my phone number on the member directory, it also would not show it in the interest directory. So all of the things, all the settings that someone limits when they are setting up their membership directory will apply here as well. When we're on this page as a member, we have the option to remove myself from this mailing list or add myself to this, sorry, I said mailing list, from this interest, or remove or add myself from an interest. So I can remove myself, or I can add myself back to a particular interest right from this page. So I don't have to go to the member profile to do it. That is the fastest way to add multiple interests. But if you're looking around and you say, this looks like a fun group of people, I want to be in this group, you can click the sign myself up right here to get added to a group. And it's just that simple. You can add and remove yourself over and over. If you're an administrator, you can also email the members. Now, this email members button only shows up for admins. Same with the export members button. So those two buttons are both admin only buttons. Members don't get direct access to get in contact with other interest members. They also don't get the option to export the data. These buttons are only showing up because I am currently listed as a website administrator. And the same is true for all of these different interests. So we can go into the education section. We can look at basket maintenance. And because I'm interested in baskets, I'm also interested in maintaining my baskets. So I'll add myself to this group as well. And we can see Martin Smith gets quickly added to the group. So that's one way we can interact with the interest module. There's also a way to connect the interest module to other modules on ClubExpress. So let's go take a look at that. So let's head straight over to my favorite way to use interest, which is the membership forum. So if we head over to the communication section of our control panel, some of you may or may not have played with the forums module. So this is a completely separate forum, or this completely separate module from our interest module. If we click on forums, this is a module where members can kind of interact with other members in an open discussion room. similar to things like Facebook threads or Reddit threads or any other social media group where people can just kind of have an open discussion with each other. This is going to work in a similar way. We have a few other training videos and webinars covering configuration and creation of forums. I'm just going to show how it quickly connects to our interest module. So right here, I've got my basket case forum set up, and this is going to be our forum that our members who are interested in the basket interest group are going to be connected to. And the way we say we want a forum to be connected to an interest group is right in the settings over here. So if we go and click on the pencil for this forum, we can see there's really only one setting that we need to set in order to make a forum specific to an interest group. So when we're creating a forum, there's an option for forum membership. Most commonly, forums are set up for either all active members, meaning this is a member forum, or for member opt-in, meaning any member who wants to be a part of this forum can just opt in to being in this forum. But there's a lot of different options that you might want to consider. So you've got things like interest members, committee members, member type. The one that we're interested in right here is our interest members. So when we select this option for membership in a forum, what this is going to do is it's going to automatically add and remove people from the forum whenever they join a specific interest. So we want to specify this is going to be our baskets interest. And so this is going to be a basket case forum for those who are interested in balloon baskets. So now anytime a member goes to their profile or goes to the interest module or renews their membership and says, hey, I am interested in baskets, the system will automatically add them to be a member of this forum. And whenever they go to interact with forums, they will see this forum as an available forum for them to have discussions in. There's also going to be an option to control visibility. So once we've selected this forum to be an interest members only forum for baskets, we can also control the visibility of this forum. So one thing I usually set up for interest specific forums is I normally set my visibility to be forum members only. What that means is this forum is completely invisible unless you are a member of that interest. That way it's not cluttering up your forums page. So when you go and look at your forums page, I might create a different forum for every single interest that I have. And as I get interested in more things, more forums become available to me. There is also the option to set it to be visible to club members only, meaning every member of our club will see the forum, but only members who are in that interest will be able to communicate in that forum. And similarly, there is an option to set it to public, meaning everyone can see all the messages, whether you're a member or not, but only interest members can actually post in that forum. So again, most commonly you'll see people who set up interest-based forums set it to forum members only. That way, it's kind of a private meeting room for people in that particular interest. The rest of our forum settings, if you're curious, you can always go and watch our other training videos or our other webinars on forums specifically, but this is how you would take a forum that is set up and make it specific to a particular interest. Another way you can use interest as a communication tool. So we've already seen how we can quickly email a group of interest members. But one thing I want to point out is in our emailing module, and to some degree, our text messaging module as well, those of you who take advantage of sending text messages, everything I'm about to show you with emailing will apply to text messages as well. But if we go into our emailing module, whenever we add an emailing, so if we're going to craft a new email, there is an option in our distribution lists. Whenever we are creating a new distribution list, there is an option where you can search for interests. So members of a selected interest group or members not in any interest group. So if we have members who are not in any interest group, we could reach out to them and say, hey, we noticed you don't have any interests. We would love for you to, get active in our various social interest groups. Or again, we can search for interests, members of a selected interest group. And we can see there's again our list of all of our different interests that our club has. And so we can use this basket interest group again, and we can add this. And now this is an emailing. This is a more full featured emailing going to everyone in our baskets group. And we can use, instead of just a simple text message, We can add images, we can add links and all sorts of different fun things in a fun newsletter type email to that interest group. I also like to point out that if you have interest groups with overlapping bits of information, so our interest in baskets, but also our members of a selected interest group, if we have, say, our basket maintenance, I lost my basket, balloon maintenance baskets. So we may have, oh yeah, so that's two different groups, but they're both baskets. So now we've got our interest groups for baskets and our balloon maintenance baskets. We can have multiple interest groups listed here. We can say, fuel system maintenance as well. We can add as many interest groups as we want, and it's going to send an email to everyone in each of these interests. Now, one question we get a lot is if someone is in multiple interest groups. So let's say we have someone in our baskets group and they're also in the fuel system maintenance group. Are they going to get that email twice? No. So it's only going to send the email once per email address. So even if you are in both the baskets group and the fuel system maintenance group, you would only get the email once because your email address, we're only going to send the email once per email address. So that is a way to kind of send a more full featured email to a particular interest group. The same exact configuration applies to our text messaging module. So if we go back to our control panel and go to text messaging, when we set up a new message, we can go to our distribution option. Oh, sorry, we don't have the text messaging module configured on this site. But whenever you're creating a message, there's a distribution option, and the distribution list works the same way as it does in the emailing module. So you can do the same thing with text messaging. So if members have text messaging enabled, you can send it that way. Keep in mind that when you're sending text messages, members have to have opted into text messages in order to receive them. The same is also true for in-app notifications. So all three of these communication methods can take advantage of your interest groups to get communications out to your members of particular interests. One more way that I really like to use the interest group module is in our event module. So if we head back over to our website tab of the control panel, whenever we are creating an event, there are two ways we can make an event specific to an interest group. So if we pick an event from this list here, whenever we are creating an event, the first way we can make it specific to an interest group is by controlling the event's visibility. So we have other videos that go into the rest of the configuration on event. In fact, a lot of videos related to events, but we're going to look at two specific sections right here in this event. If we go into our basic info of any event, we can say the visibility of this event. We have a lot of different options here, but one of the options for event visibility is interest groups. And what this means when we set the visibility to a group, we can say our baskets group and our basket maintenance group and our fuel system maintenance group. So the same people we were just emailing a minute ago. All three of those interest groups are going to have visibility on this event, meaning they will see it on the calendar. Any member or non-member who is not in one of these three interests or any combination thereof will not even see this event on the calendar. So the event will be completely invisible. So if you have some sort of exclusive meetup that is only kind of pertinent information to people who have marked these interests, only those people would actually even see the event on the calendar. So that's one option to make kind of an exclusive event for people who have the similar interests. If we leave it visible to everyone, there's one other way we can kind of create more visibility for this event, but still make it feel exclusive to particular interest members. When we go to our who can register settings on an event, there is an option in these settings. Whenever we are creating our registrant types, there is an option in here to select members of a specific interest group. So this is yet another place where we can pull in information of who belongs to a particular interest group and make this feel exclusive. So we can come in here and we can say, we want our basket maintenance group. We want and we can, repeat that process multiple times if we wanted to. We could select interest group again. And now we want our fuel system maintenance group, and so on and so forth. And now those people who are in those interest categories are able to sign up for this event. And if we make those the only available options, then only members who are in those interest groups would actually be able to sign up for this event. The event would be visible, but only people in those interest groups would be able to sign up. So those are the two different ways you can kind of configure an event to take advantage of the information in your interest module. The last thing I'll show you is our membership directory module. So if we head over to our membership directory, so I'll go over to our membership directory. There it is, membership directory. If we search for a particular member, let's look for Jenny Cho again. Right here, we can take a look at our membership directory, and whenever we view a member in our standard member directory, one of the things that is shared is your list of interests. And so here we can see that Jenny Cho is interested in both baskets and emergency repair techniques. And we can go from here, we can click on that interest and see who else is in that interest. So you can also share kind of with the rest of the people in your organization what interests you have. And that's a way for people to say, hey, I hung out with Jenny Cho, at our, board meeting, or I hung out with Jenny Cho, at our annual meetup. And, I really liked hanging out with her. So I want to, kind of join the group she was in, or maybe she mentioned her baskets group and it sounded really fun. So we can click on that and we can go and add myself to that interest from here. So the interest module really does connect to a lot of different modules for people to kind of share information about what they are currently interested in, and then, get communicating. So then if I add myself to this group, suddenly I'm able to go talk in the forums and attend the same events. It's a good way for your members to kind of build up communities within your organization. All right, Sam, that's about everything I had for the different ways to take advantage of the interest module. I'm sure there's a handful of questions. What have we got?
Yes, so there were a few questions. To kind of reiterate one of them from the top. Can you have more than one coordinator for interests? You cannot. So with each interest, as Devin kind of showed us, you're able to add in one individual coordinator. And so that stays as one. And to kind of piggyback off of that, one of the things that someone pointed out is that we use the term admin a lot, and we wanted to sort of clarify what we mean when we say admin. So generally, when we say admin, we refer to all of your full website administrators. And the way you can kind of check those out, Devin's showing us now, in your club tab, which might be labeled differently. It's the one right before the communications tab. Yours might say league, organization. In the setup section, you can see administrators and coordinators. That's the best spot to check out who exactly is a full admin on your site. And you can see that full panel up at the top of the screen. So we have a few full website administrators. Underneath that, you'll see coordinators. So when we say admin, we always mean a full admin, but sometimes we also mean the coordinator for that particular feature or function also. Because if you assign someone coordinator rights to, let's say, the interest module at the top level, like Devin's doing now, that person essentially has admin access to just that feature. So they can do a lot of the same things that we're showing you, but they can't do anything else on your website, potentially, if that's the only right that you've given them. So when we say admin again, we generally kind of mean both of those. There are some instances where the coordinator for a feature or function doesn't have full admin capabilities for that function. There aren't a ton of those, but we always call those out when we're hosting a webinar on that feature or topic. In this case, your full interest coordinator, so someone who is given coordinator rights over the whole module, has the same rights and capabilities as a full admin for interests. Someone who is the interest coordinator for just a specific interest does not have those same rights. So they're only going to have a few extra capabilities as it relates to their specific interest. Like they'll be able to email their interest group members and they can export a list of interest members, but that's about it. They aren't going to be able to make changes to the module. They aren't going to be able to add new interests or anything like that. And another question, whether or not non-members could be part of interests. Non-members cannot sign themselves up for interests. So it's one of those things that really is a power horse for your members, and it's something that you can potentially make available on your menu for your non-members, but they won't be able to actually join the groups. It could be one of those things that maybe entices them to join your organization if they see that there are people who have this a lot of the same interests as they do, but it's not something that they can actually use and manage. And another question, Devin highlighted some of the text messaging. Some of the text messaging distribution lists and email distribution lists, which are largely the same if you aren't familiar with our text messaging feature. So when you are sending a text message, the question was, is there a notice that an admin gets if you send a text to someone who's opted out of text messaging? So good news on that front. If you are sending out a blast text or blast email, and it includes a distribution list where some of those people may have opted out of either one of those communications, the message just isn't sent to them. So before anything actually gets sent, our system checks to remove anyone who has opted out of either emails or text messaging, depending on what medium you're using, and they won't even receive that message.
We got someone asking, so they said that, in reference to the admin thing we were covering just a minute ago. So like at the top level, we had system admins. Below that, we have function coordinators. So someone who is assigned as a coordinator over the interest module. And then the third level, we have someone who is assigned a coordinator of a specific interest group. That is the correct order. There are other kind of admin levels. So if you're curious about kind of the different levels of administrative privilege, I would recommend checking out our security roles. I believe that is the name of it. Webinar that we did a few months ago, where we covered all the different levels of security within ClubExpress. There's a lot of different kind of minutia to who has access to what. So there's things like subgroup admins who have admin access over certain modules but not others, and we go over kind of what each level means in that webinar. But for the most part, in reference to what you're saying, as it pertains to interests, that is completely correct. So yes, at the top level you have admins, below that you have function coordinators, and then below that you have specific interest coordinators. And that's really all that you need to worry about when it comes to the interest module in particular.
We have another question, just not related to interest, but we'll clarify that and maybe wrap ourselves up for today. Do you get notified if someone opts out of those emails or texts? A sort of pop-up, maybe, I would imagine, is what you're asking about, saying so-and-so has opted out of this, they won't get this message. We don't have anything like that. When you are sending an email, you have the option to get a quick preview of how many people may have opted out of that of any emails, so you can see a guesstimate of how many emails the system thinks that it's sending, and that's in your drop down distribution list section. So whenever you add in a distribution list, and Devin's sort of doing that right now, and you click on that arrow, you can see a bar on the right-hand side, members refusing. So that's your members who in that list who have opted out. So it won't give you any specific items. I believe, though, that we have a report that might list, Devin, if you might pop into that one. I believe there is a report within the communications tab. Yes, so members refusing email. So it would give you an idea of people who aren't getting those blast emails. So yes, if you have someone who frequently is like, I don't get any of the emails that you guys send, you might check that they are opting in or out of emails to solve that problem for them.
So there's an option to see who has opted out of emails. I'm not sure if we have that for. Oh, I don't have yes. So there is a user's report of people who are not allowing. It's right there. I don't have my servers set up to run reports on our demo site at the moment. But you can click this and it will give you an export of all of the people who are currently refusing text messages. Similarly with emails, you've got a bad numbers option. So this is the text messages we've tried to send and gotten bounce backs for one reason or another. So maybe, it's an invalid number, it's a typo or something like that, or the number is no longer in service. Same is true with emails as well. I know this is way off topic from interest at this point, but it's good information. You've also got this bad emails section over here. So that's going to be the same thing as bad numbers. Anyone who has, a typo in their email or an email that is no longer in service, or they have blocked the ClubExpress sender for one reason or another, you'll see all of the bad emails on this page. Not usually a significant portion. We usually see in most of our organizations, 90+% are fine emails, but you get a handful of people refusing and a handful of people who have a typo or just simply haven't entered an email address or something like that. So those are the ways you kind of keep tabs on that information. But all right, it looks like our questions have slowed down. Again, I said it at the top, but we have the recordings of our webinars on our YouTube channel. So you should see this video on our YouTube channel by the end of the week. So if you want to come back and review any information we went over, you will see this webinar there. And I also mentioned, so next week, we're going to be doing a webinar on member attachments. So how members can attach documents and licenses and things like that to their member profile. So if you need to check on their, driver's license or, waivers or agreements as a part of your organization, or even, just like any sort of artworks. We've seen people use member attachments to upload images of paintings, so it can be used for a lot of things. We'll be going over that module and how to ask your members to upload documents to their profile. We'll be doing that next week, so that's next Wednesday, same time. So keep an eye out for that email. We'll be sending the update email about that here in a couple days. Thank you all for joining this webinar. We're excited to get back into the swing of things with webinars. I know we don't usually take breaks from webinars, but thank you for allowing us to take a break while we did our design drill, or our event drills last month. So we're happy to be back doing our regularly scheduled webinars, and we'll see you next week.